Uncertainty over the next U.S. leader. What kind of president will Trump actually be? For his thoughts on that, I spoke to Jim Rickards, author of the new book, The Road to Ruin, and here's what he had to say.
Well, you're right. I did a series of interviews. I was in Australia 2 weeks before the election, back in New York, just a couple of days before, and I said that Trump would win, and it was very clear how the polls had been involved in systematically oversampling Democrats, oversampling African Americans, for example. The betting odds are kind of interesting. The betting odds were 80–90% favoring Hillary Clinton, but if you look at the actual number of bets, there were 4 Trump bets for every 1 Clinton bet. But the bookies had to give Clinton short odds because there was more money on the Clinton side. This could be a $10,000 bet. These might be 4, $100 bets. So when you really analyze the data that way and a couple other indicators, it was very clear that Trump is going. I said Trump is going to win in a close election. That's pretty much exactly how it played out. Now, in terms of the administration, I think we'll see a return to something like cabinet government, which we haven't seen in a long time. So much power has been concentrated in the White House, both by the Obama administration and the Bush 43 administration. But you go back into the 1960s or 1950s, we had a cabinet-style government, more like, you look at places like the UK, Australia, Canada, those cabinet ministers have a lot of power. So what I expect is Trump will name a strong cabinet. We don't have all the names yet, but you can expect people like Rudy Giuliani, Steve Mnuchin, maybe John Bolton, Newt Gingrich. These are the kinds of people. These are very skilled, very capable people. I think Trump wearing his CEO hat, since he's not a traditional politician, he's a CEO. Good CEOs are delegators. They hire good teams. They put them in charge of different divisions. If they do well, they get promoted. If they don't do well, they might get fired. Trump knows how to fire people. So we might see something more like cabinet government instead of highly centralized power. I think it's very healthy.
Yeah, and where do you see Trump going on trade? I mean, he made unfair trading practices a cornerstone of his campaign, and already people are beating the drums of a potential trade war with China. Are fears unwarranted?
Well, we have to watch it very closely, but I think they're fears are a little overblown. Here's why. Trump says something like he wants to put a 45% tariff on all Chinese goods. And, the eggheads in Washington get their spreadsheets out and calculate how much it's going to cost and what a drag on the economy is, blah, blah, blah. But the fact is that Trump doesn't mean it literally. For him, it's a negotiating position. It's a place to start. And just the other day, the Chinese came back and said, hey, if you put 45% tariffs on, we're going to stop buying Boeing aircraft. We'll buy Airbus instead. We're going to, tighten up our markets to U.S. investment, et cetera. So both sides have put out their opening positions. But that's how I view them. They're opening positions. Now we're going to have a negotiation. And Trump could say, for example, well, it's 45% tariff unless you give me some concessions. What have you got? What can you do on theft of intellectual property? What can you do on more U.S. control of investment in China, more direct foreign investment, et cetera? And then if China makes some concessions, we'll say, well, now I'll come down to 25%. What else have you got? You go back and forth. Now, in a real trade war, if it doesn't play out that way, as I say, a kind of tough but a tough negotiation, but one that makes progress. If it doesn't play out that way, and you actually do have a trade war with escalation on both sides, it will hurt both sides, but it will hurt China more. The U.S. economy is stronger, more resilient. We have a legitimate regime. China has an illegitimate communist regime. They only have one mission, which is to keep the Communist Party in power. But if you get popular discontent because the economy is slowing or they can't create jobs, that could actually destabilize the regime. So there's a bit of an asymmetry in who wins, or actually who loses the most in a situation like that. It would definitely be China. And Trump is the master of leverage. Trump understands leverage. If he's well advised, he'll know exactly what I just described and use that to his advantage. So you have to think of it as a process of negotiation that could end up in a very good place for American workers. It doesn't have to be a trade war.
Yeah, but if it is a trade war, couldn't it hurt his most ardent supporters? I mean, after all, some of these, working class people in the Rust Belt depend on cheap products to buy at big box stores like Walmart. I mean, isn't that at risk?
I'd rather have a job than cheap products. I mean, yes, let's just say things are more expensive, but maybe things are more expensive on the import side, but maybe more people have jobs. Maybe people have higher wages. Maybe we're actually creating, second-order effects in the U.S. economy where, there are multipliers, et cetera. So price is not the only, what good does it do if you have cheap goods if no one has a job? Remember, it was Henry Ford who gave his workers a raise, his auto workers. He gave them a raise, made his labor costs more expensive because he said, what good does it do to have cheap labor if my workers can't afford to buy my cars?
Right.
So this is what economists are not good at. They're not good at these second and third order effects, which could